basically, through these NGOs and the media apparatus and the way tax dollars were being used, I think, to uphold and to give the left a heartbeat in our country. It has been pretty eye-opening, to the extent of it, I would say.
45 seconds. What's the one thing you want to see done in the next 100 days? Like the top priority, the next one?
I think trade deals coming through is going to be pretty key. Trading is needed. We have to have a course correction. Our economy's been surviving kind of on steroids in a sense, and he's putting the right foundations back in place. Get manufacturing back, get our energy system going, and then as these trade deals fall in place, I think that'll provide a lot of confidence to get our economy rolling.
Congressman Cloud in Texas falling out from the stripped agreement. Rep Cloud TX. Congressman, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Keep it up. The steroids analogy is good. The Besant, I believe, used the steroids analogy as well. That we've been pumping up the
morning, Eggsy.
And printing a ton of money, and the stock market's great, and it's like we're a guy on steroids, jacked, looking great, looking cut. But our insides are sick, dying, not healthy. And it's going to take some time to course correct that. That's where we are right now. Slater at Breitbart.com is my email. Slater at Breitbart.com. Slater Radio on Twitter and Instagram. If you go back and listen to the gratitude segment, it was wonderful, fantastic phone calls, wonderful.
That was
stories.
good. We got to spend time with the grandbaby yesterday.
Requisite to virtue, and virtue is what we need to stay in this country. That's why we do it every Monday. So check that out right here on SiriusXM Patriot. Like I said, Breitbart News Daily. Spread the word.
You heard the news. Newsmax just went public on the New York Stock Exchange.
Yep, first Easter.
Millions of Americans like you are joining our news revolution. Reuters Institute says Newsmax is one of the top 12 news brands in America. Even President Trump says it's terrific. 40 million Americans go to Newsmax, and its audience grew 50% since the same time last year. Millions really are making the switch to Newsmax. If you want to be a Newsmax share, call your advisor or get more info at newsmaxinvest.com. Stand with Newsmax today for a strong America. This communication is for informational purposes only and shall not be intended to or shall not constitute any offer to buy or sell securities, nor shall there be any sale of securities.
Yeah, I heard.
Such offers, solicitation, or sale would be unlawful.
I peruse X when I'm going my morning constitutional before I jump in the shower. I did hear about it. Be the head of the church, and he espoused a lot of things that were against what the church is supposed to be behind.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. Just a day after greeting crowds from a balcony overlooking St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis has died. Vatican revealed the 88-year-old pontiff's death earlier this morning.
In an announcement, Cardinal Kevin Farrell of the Vatican announced that the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned home to Father
Morning, Brandon.
Monday morning. Pope Francis was born December 17, 1936 in Buenos Aires, Argentina, the first pope from the Society of Jesus, the first from the Americas and the Southern Hemisphere, and the first born or raised outside Europe since the 8th century Syrian Pope Gregory III.
Correspondent Tasha Stevens says the Pope died following a recent 38-day hospital stay for a respiratory ailment that morphed into double pneumonia. At the Vatican, correspondent Nicole Winfield says now comes a period of public mourning before a papal conclave gets down to business.
Cardinals are coming to Rome from around the world.
I just hope they
in that funeral mass.
They decided somebody a little less progressive.
Procedures begin. There are a few days of closed meetings. These are when the cardinals get together and meet in secret. They're receiving reports from all the different Vatican offices of what the financial situation is, what the problems are facing the church around the world, and what are the qualities that are needed to bring the church forward. At a certain point, they stop those meetings and the conclave begins.
Church bells have pealed in Rome and around the globe in memory of Francis. In a 7-2 ruling, the Supreme Court temporarily halting the Trump
There goes a Cybertruck.
deportation flights of Venezuelan gang members. Only Justices Alito and Thomas dissented. It was the Liberties Union that quickly challenged those deportations. On Wall Street this morning, stocks headed for a lower open. On Wall Street, the Dow futures down 319 points, NASDAQ futures off 251. More on these stories at townhall.com.
We talk about Relief Factor and how so many people enjoy a better, more pain-free life because of it. If you're dealing with everyday pain, it makes sense you'd want to try it first. Well, Relief Factor makes that pretty pain-free too with their 3-week quick start kit for only $19.95, less than $1 a day. Relief Factor is a daily supplement that fights pain naturally. Relief Factor doesn't just
Yeah, they do all that in secret, but yeah, they do
Visit
publish a couple of names.
Or call 1-800-4RELIEF, 800
Typically, it's
relief for relief.
one of the more senior cardinals.
People in radio commercials talk really
It doesn't have to be.
But we made this one for RV owners. Progressive
They say they pick the older ones just because they don't want them to be in the seat for too long.
And they know Progressive will protect their RV at a fair price with discounts. Now here comes the best part. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Vice President Vance is on a personal and diplomatic trip to India.
Vance is meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi as New Delhi looks to strengthen defense and commercial ties with the Trump administration and negotiate a deal to avoid tariffs. The U.S. is India's largest trading partner, and the two countries aim to seal a bilateral trade agreement this year. The family were greeted at the airport with a classical Indian dance performance and paid a visit to Akshardham Hindu Temple in New Delhi after their arrival. Vance's wife, Usha, is a practicing Hindu whose parents are from India. Modi was among the first leaders to visit President Trump after he returned to the White House and has been signaling compliance with the administration's demands. Trump has targeted India with a 26% levy, part of which has been paused. He's continued to call India a tariff abuser. I'm Jennifer Payne.
Authorities say at least 3 Haitian soldiers have been killed in a apparent gang ambush happened in a town on the outskirts of Haiti's capital of Port-au-Prince over the weekend. Townhall.com.
Truth is the authority. All right, first thing, bring your A game because I'll take nothing less. We're going to have an open and honest discussion, but the facts matter. Let's talk about the people. It's common sense. It's principles and policies that work for everybody. I just want to talk about how to fix this country.
Yeah, for a little bit. It's supposed to be rainy all day today, on and off. High of almost 70 though, 69.
The news breaking early this morning that Pope Francis died at age 88 on Easter Monday. He died in his residence in the Vatican's Casa Santa Marta. And, of course, the world now responding. Recently, the Pope had met with the Vice President, J.D. Vance, and his family, who were among the last of many to see the Pope. He did come out on Easter Sunday. While he did not officiate the Mass, he did come out and issue a message. So that was his last public message to the world. And Pope Francis has certainly been someone who's been surrounded by controversy and questions, having succeeded, other popes who have had longer tenures, in some cases like Pope John Paul. But there's a lot that will be discussed as to the future of the Catholic Church, the next Pope, if you will. There's a 9-day mourning period, and certainly in the United States, and as one of the world's largest organizations. There have been questions and controversies, good work as well, a mixture of, if you will, religion and politics at times. So there's a lot on the table. And in the United States, the numbers are significant. Roughly 20% of U.S. adults, it varies a little bit up and down, but roughly 20% of U.S. adults in some of the later studies or the most recent studies describe themselves as Catholics. Fairly stable percentage in the last 10 years, slightly lower than it has been at a height of about 24-25% in 2007. And that, you know, when you look at it, of the the 267 million adults in the United States currently, according to 2024 numbers from the Census Bureau, that means that there are roughly 53 to 54 million Catholics nationwide, those who identify as Catholic. And there has been a share of the U.S. Catholic population that has grown in recent years. 54% of the population white, 36% Hispanic, 4% Asian, 2% black, an additional 2% identify as another race.
This guy's trying to speed up.
Pew Research study, a fairly comprehensive analysis of the Catholic population in the United States. And there has also been significant debate over various elements, if you will, portions of the Catholic Church as an overall organization. There's been a lot of question in the United States when it comes to even political policy and immigration policy, where Catholic Charities, another arm of the Catholic Church, has been involved in politics by providing legal support for illegal aliens, among other services, operating within and without, with other NGOs for that matter. So there's a lot of complexity to this. And certainly not just in this audience, but across the country, obviously, a large and significant percentage of the population that is Hispanic,
The same lakes that dump snow on us pretty heavily protect us from those type of wind conditions. I mean, we get them, but it's pretty rare.
Catholics are immigrants. About 29%.
Tigers are doing good. They finally lost one. They won 3 out of 4. Mud hens are not doing all that great just because the Tigers have 3 major starters that are injured. So they've got 3 of the best mud hens playing up in Detroit right now.
There have been controversies over the decades with the Catholic Church.
I think it's a long season. As those guys heal, they'll bring them down, back down. Mud hens will improve. But that's the point of having a minor league team. You know, you get to bring those guys up when they're playing good and when you need them.
A number of angles. We have lots of other policy and other issues to deal with. The reconciliation.
The Tigers are in first place in their division right now, just over Cleveland.
Logan Gidley, former principal deputy press secretary for the Trump administration, will help us break that down, get a good understanding of what's going on there.
Mud hens are in last.
Integrity, part of that, and of course,
their division.
A rising network in many ways, and I would say somewhat, to use the term, that has risen into the ranks of conservative media. Chris Ruddy, CEO of Newsmax, later on in the show, second hour, with his thoughts on tariffs, Doge, Iran, and of course Newsmax taking the next steps in their business.
Oh, Joplin, Missouri? Yeah.
They're now well-known public law.
You sure you survived, Brandon?
So we'll get a business update after all.
Are you sure?
What we do as a business.
Well, we're glad you did.
Fox across over to Sirius this morning, and it pretty much kind of points to my it's a business.
Morning, Unindoctrinated.
As I walking into the building, the chairman of Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, it's Monday morning, pre 9 a.m. Matter of fact, And what time did I get here? A little bit before 8 a.m. I'd been over
Yeah, we're very glad you
a
did.
couple of hours, and Murdoch.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
Before 8 a.m. So when the boss shows up, the rest of the people better show up. Perspective on a couple of bosses. My boss.
What do you guess? This guy's going to want over.
Look at Chris Ruddy's take. I know Chris Ruddy shows up for work, even if he's working remotely. I know he's up for work. So we have a lot on the table and a lot to cover. And over the weekend, a good amount of this coming out in the form of policy and, of course, the battles over the deportation of criminal illegal aliens, the other issues around what's going on in Washington, what they're doing on your behalf. So let's walk through some of this weekend in the form of audio, Edwin, with what played out. We had Doug Burgum in the news. We had Dr. Oz out there making statements. Letitia James on the enforcement side, I guess you can
Car
call
just
it
cut
that.
off that other car.
And of course, the ongoing saga, and it is a Democrat media saga, around Gilmar Abrego Garcia, the MS-13 gang member, who has been designated, as the organization has been, as a foreign terrorist organization. And the breakdowns here matter. They really do. Who is Abrego Garcia? What are the circumstances around
He's
his
like on his
deportation?
ass.
It's a continuing and developing story that fits the model, kind of the drip model of the information coming out. Tom Holman, the border czar, on with Joe Scarborough, laid it out for us. Cut.
No, they weren't ready
The
with that cut.
administration's admitted it's a mistake. All parties have admitted it's a mistake. Do you admit that it's a mistake? And is this something that should not happen again?
Look, I don't agree with the term that was a mistake. I mean, I know that was put on the beginning, but looking at this case, there's a couple of things in play here. First of all, it's a mistake because it said he had withholding the removal. Well, the facts around that withholding have changed over the years. For instance, when that decision was made on withholding, he was classified as a terrorist, which he is now. And plus, the conditions of the withholding was a danger of a specific gang in El Salvador. That gang don't exist anymore in El Salvador. Matter of fact, El Salvador is one of the safest nations in the region now because of the actions of President Bukele. So the facts.
No, I'm pretty much just coffee and water until noon. I've been fasting. Has nothing to do with Lent or anything. This is a diet thing, a health thing. No, nothing till noon. I might indulge in something that they have there, but for lunch.
Who has since been designated as a terrorist. So the entire condition around the decisions have changed. The facts have changed. So we don't think the withholding is in play anymore.
And of course, the media continues. They continue to, well, in some cases, just flat out lie. Just flat out lie. Here's Tom Holman again with Caitlin Collins, who has made it her mission to lie about this administration in every way possible.
I've seen some people look at this and say they're worried that the stance of this administration when it comes to this is that if someone is deported by accident, that they have no responsibility for them once they're in the custody of a foreign government. What would you say to that?
True.
Well, they're in custody of El Salvador. He's an El Salvadoran national. He was born in El Salvador. El Salvador has been custody, and El Salvador decided what happened to him. I mean, again, the El Salvador president made it clear he's not going to release him. So again, I won't go back. The DOJ, they can fight this out in the courts. I'm not a
interest into what? If it was a Democrat in power, as Joe Biden was for 4 years, arguably who was in charge is a unique or maybe tangential but important question to that, then a government should be believed, except now for Caitlin Collins or Joe Scarborough or anybody out there in the left side of the existing media, and I'll use that term loosely, government should not be believed. Some of these determinations go back to the point where Joe Biden was in office, and it was okay then, or maybe just not of interest. Over the weekend, on other things that actually matter to you, to the American people, Doug Burgum on with Shannon Green on Fox News Sunday had this to say. Cut five.
I mean, what we're doing right now is emptying out the barn and deciding what should go back in, and what should go back in is the stuff that actually serves the American people. That's what, and so we take national parks for an example. There is so much overhead of people that work for the park system that don't work in a park. We can actually increase the number of people. Like this summer, we'll have more people working in Yellowstone than we had in 2020. More people working, but we could end up with fewer people across the whole park system, because guess what? We may not need that many people in IT. We may not need that many people in HR. There's things we can do to streamline, and if we got people that are in this business because they care about the environment, they care about our...
Oh, it's a Monday. They're always busy. But I'm gonna try. I'll try and stream. We'll see how it goes.
Wildfire fighters, people that are for summer help.
We'll do our best to make it happen.
The public, as opposed to in DC or in a regional location where you're just doing overhead that's part of the barn that's never been cleaned out.
I hate completely ignoring the stream though when it gets too busy.
Simple facts that matter. And remember when they said essentially, the parks are going to close, always going to end. Employees who are temporary workers who were being just put in a tracked permanency for a job that, well, there was no duty to go with the job position. Why?
I wonder where the Sheets truck is going.
With the Trump administration across the board, not just with DOGE, but now DOGE effectively being led in these various agencies and departments by these secretaries getting the job done. DOGE is, in a way, I don't know if it's an accurate or a greatest analogy, but it's like free speech. You have the Constitution and you have the principle. In DOGE, you have the need and you have the principle working together, and it's not just a one-man job for Elon Musk or the DOGE bros. And they've been catching a lot of waste and fraud. Here's the new director of CMS, Dr. Mehmet Oz.
I'll give you a couple examples. Mr. President, these are ones that you may want to use in some of your future conversations. Almost 250,000 people, American citizens, were fraudulently enrolled without their knowledge in exchange programs by brokers who were unscrupulous, stealing from the U.S. government by pretending these people were on programs they never told them about. Tens of millions of dollars, Mr. President, are being spent on illegal immigrants receiving Medicaid in California, and they're pushing the bill to us. Should we stop that? I think so. That will not continue. We're spending about $1 billion on Medicaid programs for dual state eligible patients, which means you live in one state, but the system thinks you're another state, or maybe a third state. We're paying all 3 states for services you're not getting because you don't live in 3 states all at once. And finally, and this one really bothers me, there are states who are using Medicaid dollars for people who are vulnerable are being used for non-medical purposes. For example, public labor unions are getting child care through some of this money. It doesn't make sense to me. Housekeeping, I wish I could get that for my home. There's a big problem with student loan repayments taking place with Medicaid dollars. That's not where it should be used. And we are paying for DEI programs. I could go on, but these are all programs, Mr. President, that we have created a war room at CMS to go after, to catch the fraud in real time before the money leaves the federal coffers, so we have the money to reinvest in healthcare to make it even stronger than it's been before.
One thing I can tell you now is that Oz and I sat down over coffee one day before he was confirmed, and he told me of some of his plans have confirmed, and there he is. There you have it. He's getting to work, and there is a lot of work to be done, and it's good to see it starting to happen, and frankly across the agencies. It takes time. I like you, wish it could be snap of the finger and it's done. But it is going to take time to unwind decades of malfeasance in Washington, D.C., in and outside of the elected offices, bureaucrats, bureaucracies, agencies, and even where they exist at the state level. It's a complex problem. It requires a significant body of work, not just the audit and the exposure, but then the unraveling and the cleanup. 866-95-PATRIOT, 957-2874. Speaking of people living where they shouldn't, I'll save Letitia James for later in the show. She won't be silenced at all. She'll never be silenced. It's all Trump silent. 866-95-PATRIOT, 957-2874. What are the thoughts? What are your thoughts? We'll get to the calls next. Hey, when you're a business owner, every second of your time is incredibly valuable. So don't waste your energy, money dealing with time-sucking payroll issues, office politics, and HR infractions. Focus on what matters most. Running your business.
Well, there's good and bad parts, just like most cities.
Give you access to your very own dedicated HR manager at a fraction of what it costs to employ somebody full-time. Bambi costs us $29 a month, whether you have 10, 75, or even 100 employees. Forget about onboarding new employees and terminating underperforming ones. With Bambi, your dedicated HR team will handle all of that for you. And as a business owner, you don't have off hours. Neither does Bambi. Your dedicated HR manager is always available by phone, text, or online. No downtime excuses or BS. Just dedicated HR support when you need it.
Well, this part's not the best right here, generally, and I used to live right by here, but where I live now is completely different.
Schedule your first call with an HR manager right now. That's 1 month of Bambi for just $1 at BAMBEE.com web radio.
The Will Cow Majority.
Coming up right after the David Webb Show, the Washington Free Beacon is reporting that the Harris campaign paid $50,000 to LeBron James for an endorsement.
The Will Cow Majority coming up next at noon East after the David Webb Show on SiriusXM Patriot.
You heard the news. Newsmax just went public on the New York Stock Exchange and listed on the big board. Millions of Americans like you are joining our news revolution. Reuters Institute says Newsmax is one of the top 12 news brands in America. Even President
Yes, we made it.
Terrific. 40 million Americans go.
You guys have a blessed day.
And its audience
Rest in peace.
50% since the
Poperachi.
last year. Millions really
I'll talk to you guys later. Hopefully I will be able to get it going, the stream going. See you in a bit.
Call your advisor or get more info at newsmaxinvest.com.